speak about the controversy about these rights, they remain exclusive. They remain essentially in the hands of those with money.
Not necessarily. You know, I think what we need to bear in mind is that the current regime is not illegal, and Icasa has clarified that the ECA permits the acquisition of sports broadcasting rights on an exclusive basis by broadcasters, as long as that acquisition of those rights does not prevent the free-to-air broadcasting of those same rights. So what's happening is not illegal. It's not prohibited by the law.
And then in terms of the free-to-air part of that broadcast right, how does that impact the rest of the nation, especially looking at the public broadcaster?
Well, the rights, you know, it's up to the broadcasters to negotiate. As I understand it, the current practice is that the rights are acquired by pay TV operators, who then conclude sub-licensing arrangements with free-to-air operators, so that the events of national interest are widely available to all South Africans.
And let's talk about some of those events, especially the so-called smaller sports, the likes of tennis, the likes of netball. How do we see those being broadcast in the future?
Well, it would be up to the sports federations that are looking after those sporting codes that you've mentioned, tennis, netball, to conclude the relevant agreements, to negotiate the relevant agreements with the broadcasters of their choice.
It was a difficult road to get to this point, Ziyanda, where there is some sort of an understanding now. Why is this deemed, or why is this amendment bill seen as controversial?
Well, it's seen as controversial just because, you know, there was, during the public hearings especially, there was a lot of debate regarding whether or not exclusivity is something that should be preserved. And it was, you know, the sports federations themselves were arguing that seeing as though they receive very little money or no money from the states, they have to be very creative in their fundraising mechanisms to be able to discharge their legislative obligations to support sports in South Africa. And because they have this unfunded legislative mandate, they have to find the funds somewhere, you know, and they should have the freedom to be able to do so, and that Icasa shouldn't be telling them, you know, how they should conclude those deals, because, you know, they need the money. So that's why it was controversial, because the sporting federations were saying we need the money, and what Icasa was proposing at the time was going to interfere with their fundraising mechanisms.
In terms of, you know, I mean, broadcast rights are a big money spinner across the world, really. The PSL in particular has been a very sore topic. We've seen SABC struggling to secure broadcast rights up until the 11th hour, and sometimes even after the fact that the season has kicked off. I mean, is there some sort of space made within the amendment bill that will see rights secured within time, so that the general public doesn't miss out on national sport?
Well, I'm not sure if that particular issue is addressed in the regulations, but the regulations themselves do make provision for a dispute resolution mechanism. It allows Icasa to be approached, to be informed if the parties can't agree.
And then finally, Ziyanda, before I do let you go, is this a kind of resolution that we can see working for the country going forward, long term, especially with the digitalization of television taking a while to happen, but it's always been in the mouths of the leaders of the country saying that it will eventually come to fruition?
Yes, I think it's a positive development. You know, as I understand it, you know, Icasa has managed to strike the appropriate balance between all the significant stakeholders, being the sports federations, the broadcasters, and indeed the sports fans themselves. So, of course, it remains to be seen whether or not, you know, the hope that we all have that this thing is going to work. We just need to maintain a watch and brief and see whether the regulations will be implemented in the way that everybody hopes.
Ziyanda, thank you so much for your time this morning. I really do appreciate that.